Welcome to the Life with Joey Calvo podcast. I am Joey Calvo. Today is an impromptu podcast because a lot's going on, and I'm going to share with you. And it's going to be good for some. It's going to be bad for others. But it's a direction that I am going to take. But within this direction, good things have already started. That's going to be part of the announcement. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off by all the new viewers and listeners that are watching and listening to this podcast. Let me introduce myself. My name is Joey Calvo. I'm a typical person like you. I'm not Joe Rogan. I don't have a big following. I do host a podcast called Life with Joey Calvo, and I do my best to have guests come on and tell their story, because everybody has a story, and help them promote what they do and help promote anything that they want. And some conversations will be short. Some conversations will be long. Some conversations will be interesting, and some might get boring. But you know what? I've learned to deal with it. I am on the East Coast. I do my best to have the best guests possible, which is going to be part of the announcement of what has happened, what is happening. Also, so I am on social media. The podcast is on social media. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Threads. But there's going to be some changes. I'm going to explain that in a little bit in the announcement as well. Another thing about me is I have had health problems. I'm not going to be ashamed to share it sometimes. I do hope that you do subscribe to the YouTube channel and click on the notifications, so that way you know when this podcast goes live on YouTube. Also follow the podcast itself on anchor.fm/Life with Joey Calvo. It'd be great. I also have a Wish Tender and a Patreon account, to where I am working on expanding this podcast even more. And that you can find on the Instagram. I think I just have it on Instagram right now, but we're working on expanding it to other social media sites to bring it out. So I started to say that I have health problems, and there's a little story to this. About a little over 2 weeks ago, I was running for the bus and going to work. And yes, I do work part-time at a normal job. And it may look somewhat interesting. And I've covered the bottom of it. I actually work part-time for Amazon. And as I was running for the bus, I got on the bus. I was going to work in Jersey because I work in New Jersey. I live in Philadelphia. And I felt like my heart was going to give out. I was like panting, like breathing, like super deep, like worried, like I was going to pass out or something. So along the bus ride, I'm getting myself together. So I turned around. I got to work. Now, I do have some guilt to this because I wasn't on my medication at the time. And when I went to have the blood pressure taken, had vitals taken, my blood pressure was super elevated, like 180 over 113. And I was unsafe to work. So I went to the emergency room, and I wound up going to the emergency room about 3 times during a week. And the third time I went for a second opinion. So I went to a different hospital. I didn't have a stroke. The medication takes at least a week or 2 to take effect. Everything else was normal. I do have diabetes and other conditions. So my blood sugar was still high. So my health is starting to get better. And I have reached out to a cardiologist. I do have a cardiologist. Correction. I do have a cardiologist. I actually had a second one now that I sat down and chat with. And I'm already starting to feel like I'm losing viewers already. And I haven't gotten to the announcement yet. But I wanted to explain who I am and what goes on. So, now, as I'm starting the announcement, there's going to be some changes. Again, some will not be happy. But as of March 31st, the podcast will be leaving Facebook. And I have a personal reason that I'm leaving Facebook. It has nothing to do really with the podcast part, but it's connected to me personally. And a lot of things got not comfortable with me on Facebook. So that is why I'm leaving Facebook on March 31st. The podcast will stay on Twitter, and it will stay on Instagram, and it will stay on Threads for right now. Those are the main 3 that we're going to be focused on. And the reason is the positivity of those platforms. And I do mean positivity. And as I'm going through this adjustment, I've had a lot of guests on this podcast that I am truly thankful for. And I hope that as time goes by, they come back on again. And as I've been on these podcasts, doing these podcasts, and I will be honest right now, I do see a therapist. I do have low self-esteem, and I've been told by a psychiatrist, believe it or not, that these podcasts were like therapy. And there's been some guests that I've had where I've accidentally made them uncomfortable, or not accidentally, made them uncomfortable, didn't mean to. There are some guests that I've had where I've made a mistake and lost friends and future guests from it. That's going to change. Like the psychiatrist said, this podcast is like therapy. So the podcast will continue. The YouTube stream will continue. And as I'm doing it, we're going to work on being positive. So there may be some podcasts where I'll be by myself and I'm going to share things that are positive. And hopefully the guests that will come on will enlighten you, because as I've been doing some podcasts, and there has been one very special friend who, and I actually have two real friends right now who have been really a rock to me. I'm not saying that the Facebook friends I have are all truly real to me. I do have some. I had others who were trying to help me, but the way they were showing the help was like being bossy. All right, if you're a nurse, and I do have nurse friends on Facebook, and I'm sorry that I'm going to hurt them when I leave Facebook at the end of the month. But one thing I brought up on this podcast is wording and how wording goes. If you tell me, do this, that doesn't sound like you're being a help. You're pushing. That's how I look at it. I know that you're trying to help. I understand that you're trying to help. But words always hurt. And the way words come out are even stronger than you think. So I had a little issue with it on Facebook, to the point where I actually left it for a couple days. And when I left Facebook for a couple days, I felt better. It felt a little more comfortable. And it was a good thing. So hence why I'm leaving Facebook. Because I don't want to deal with the way everything was worded. People don't think words actually are stronger than you think. So, like I said, this podcast will be leaving Facebook on March 31st. Now, to the better announcement part to it, is this podcast has been slowly in the process of getting guests, and some of these guests that you've seen on the podcast over the past couple months have been from different sources. So we are continuing those sources. And I am now happy to say that as of next week, this podcast will be part of the World Podcast Network, to where it will be promoted out to hundreds, and I mean hundreds, not just one or two, but hundreds of podcasts. And as I made that step today to sign up to join this network called the World Podcast Network, I actually gained a follower on Instagram, and I have reached out to that podcast to actually collaborate with them. And I am very thankful to that. Now, I have two people that I really have to thank, because they're seeing the real me right now. Everything else everybody's seen may not actually have been the truth. But two people who are really a rock to me, and I'm truly, like I said, I'm truly thankful to them. The first one is going to be anonymous. That person has gone through my ups and downs and has really stood by me over the past year. This person really fought with me over any pity parties I had. And I'm happy that this anonymous is still going to be part of this new journey. The other person was recently a guest on this podcast, and I'm trying to hold back tears because she actually saw things about me that I didn't know. And it hurts me because I thought I was a better person than I thought. And I wasn't. And I hope that in this new journey, this person, this former guest, Elise Alexander, is still going to be there to care and still be there to help me, as well as Anonymous. It sounds like I'm being negative, but I'm really not right now. I'm in tears because I never realized how strong people can really be and really fight for you and tell you directly from outside and witnessing who I was and who I am right now. And you know what? I'm sick and tired of that person. I really am. I have fought with this person for 40 years. And you know what? It's going to start to end right now. And from now on, I'm going to fight that person. I'm going to get rid of my pity parties. I'm going to accept myself for once, because I never did over those 40 years because of that person. And you know what? It's going to feel good to overcome it. Because at least I know right now I have at least 2 real people that are behind me. Or hopefully 2. At least 1. So thank you, Anonymous. And Elise, if you watch this and you decide to continue to be part of this new journey, I'm thanking you in advance. Because you actually told me via witnessing who I am. And you're right. I need to trust myself. I need to believe in myself. I need to like myself. So that's going to be my new journey. And the first step that I took, like I said, was this podcast is going to be like therapy to me. As I have guests and they get to learn, I get to learn who they are and their stories. In a conversation form. I know at least Anonymous will come up with questions to give me. I'm sorry. But I have to be really forward. And I really have to make this podcast work better. And I mean better. Because I've learned, even if some of the podcasts were cut short to 15, 20 minutes because I couldn't come up with questions, having a guest on was good. Because it was therapy. Yes, like I said, I do go to a therapist. I was almost about to give up this podcast, but kept the YouTube channel. I would have kept the podcast channel open for you to listen and view all the former podcasts and all the guests I've had. But Anonymous kept reminding me that I can do it, that things will look good. And Elise actually had said to me, and you got to listen to the YouTube and the podcast that I did with Elise, something I had worked on for 25 years. I mean, it isn't working out. At least told me that wasn't going to be my thing. You know what? She's right, even though I still want to do it. But I'm learning that this podcast, maybe it is it. Maybe this is where I'm worth doing. I mean, I thought about going to radio school. I'm still thinking about radio school and being an on-air personality, so I can take this podcast to the terrestrial radio at least, and maybe taking it out further than that. Maybe this podcast is doing something for me. And I didn't. I looked at it, but at the same time, I was giving up on it because of my own personal pity party. Boy, am I learning to be wrong about it? I joined the World Podcast Network today, and I watched the Instagram video of the creator of the World Podcast Network. And not long after I watched his Instagram live, I gained a follower, another podcast. And I was really, really excited. I was like, wow. I was like, this is going to make a difference. And then I'm coming home from the laundromat because, everybody does laundry. Well, I had to do laundry too. And I noticed something in the neighborhood. And I actually went to the block captain who lived like 2 doors down from this area. And I actually got concerned about the neighborhood. It's unusual of me. But you know what? It felt good. Even though they knew about it, but it felt good to take that step and say, you know what? Hey, look at what's going on here in this neighborhood. Are you aware of it? I couldn't believe my heart. It was amazing. So yeah, maybe the therapy started. Maybe I'm not going to have 500,000 viewers on these podcasts. Maybe I might not have 500 downloads at one time on the anchor.fm/Life with Joey Calvo. But I'm be happy when guests are on, that they come on and bring it out. Bring out the questions. Bring out the comments. I've been trying to say that everyone has a story. And the guests that I've had on this podcast since day one, and that was 5 years ago, almost 5 years ago, in September, really brought everything out. I mean, I've done podcasts about scleroderma because there's another person in my life that is dealing with scleroderma. And I was so thankful that I got someone. I did a town hall, like 4 or 5 town halls. So it felt good to do that. I've had celebrities on this podcast I never would think would even be so supportive of this podcast. I mean, I've been amazed. Actually, one of those celebrities is still a friend. So I really had 3. Sorry. I really had 3 real friends. I'm sorry, four. Four. Correction, four. Because, God, every time I'm thinking about this, I'm realizing how many real friends I really have and been a support and have come on this podcast, even though right now one really can't be on because they got so many other podcasts to do. But one came out twice, and I promoted him like crazy. I will always promote him. And it's odd because I met him on YouTube. Really did. And followed him, and now we've been friends for 2 years now, and it's a great thing. And his name is Eric Essex. I am so thankful that he has come on to promote everything, and I will always be happy to promote his music. His music, in Gen X terms, his music in smooth jazz style is banging. Okay, it started out with Late Night Drive. As I got to know him, he did a remake of Ain't No Sunshine with Ruben Studdard from American Idol, who I still would love to have on the podcast. Chance to chat with him. And Eric is always welcome to come back. He knows that. But I'm also friends with a supermodel, even though she don't like to hear the word supermodel. She likes model better. And that's Carol All. We follow each other on Twitter. I believe we follow each other on Instagram too. And we chat once in a while. Hey, chatting with a celebrity is like the greatest thing in the world. It really is. Because you're building these friendships and now as I'm realizing how much they mean, even though Carol can't be on the podcast right now because she's got a lot going on, but I'll always promote her. And it's just amazing. I've had Gregory Jabbar from the CBS drama Blue Bloods. He's been busy right now shooting the final season and also other things. And you got to watch the podcast we did, because that was the day we did that podcast 2 years ago, was the day that William Shatner actually went to space, and we actually were watching it and chatting about it. More on the YouTube channel than on the podcast itself, because they only give you an hour on the anchor.fm. But it was great. And then I had Todd Newton. And it took me 2 years to get Todd Newton to come on the podcast. Todd Newton was first on the E Network when it first came out. And then did game shows, and now he's touring with the Price is Right Live. And I got to see him 2 years ago at Harrah's in Atlantic City. And I've been reaching out and trying to get him on the podcast, and he's been wanting to come on, and finally I got him on. He's like the 12th most watched podcast on YouTube. But it was great to have him on because there was so much to talk about. It may not, but he only had a short amount of time, so we had to condense it to a short amount of time. But it was great. So maybe this psychiatrist I had, maybe he was telling me something that I should have really looked at all this time. And then recently, I just had another actress, Stephanie Santana, who came on and was I felt like I made her nervous. And I think I might have made her afraid to come back on this podcast, but she will always be welcome no matter what. And I want to collaborate with other podcasts. I want to collaborate with a lot of people. I want people to tell their stories. And I'm going to do my best to keep it in a positive manner. Because that's what I need to be. I need to be positive. I need to keep one foot in front of the other and actually be accepting of me, Joey Calvo, for the person I should be. Not that Joey Calvo that I've been fighting for 40 years that tells me that I'm the ugliest son of a bitch in the world. That I mean nothing. That I'm not making a difference. That I'm not worth anything but a piece of shit. And excuse my language. I feel like I am more than that. And I need to tell myself that. And I need to fight that Joey Calvo that says I'm worth nothing and kick him out of my life forever. So that's going to be my new journey as I'm joining the World Podcast Network and working on collaborating with other guests and podcasts, because you, the viewer and listener, need information and entertainment. Not a pity party. Not some guy who kept thinking he was a piece of shit for 40 years. Who was picked on, put through hell. That's it. I was at my lowest yesterday. Today is that start to where I climb and burst through that bubble of being considered a piece of shit, because I am not a piece of shit. I'm Joey Calvo. I host a podcast. And I am someone. I am someone. And at least I know that I've had support along the way. Who have kicked me in the rear because I was running away from that. Sorry. My glasses were on the top of the router and it fell in front of the camera. So I apologize for that. But I had at least two that told me I was not really a piece of shit. That I am someone. That I can make a difference. And you know what? I need to listen to that. I need to follow that. And you know what? I'm going to. So I'm going to do my best, like I said, to improve this podcast the best way I can. Pity parties and that Joey Calvo that thinks I'm a piece of shit is about to go down. Because I am done with him. And it's going to start today. Yes, I'm going to look out for my health better. Yes, I'm going to try to do things to improve me. And it's going to be a journey. And I know at least Anonymous is right there with me. And it's going to be by my side. And I'm hoping Elise will be there as well. Because it was her that really showed me what was going on in my life. And she actually said to me, and I quote, "If I'm going to do something, I better act on it now. Because if I was going to do what I was going to do on March 31st. And I was going to leave everything from the podcast to Facebook to Twitter to Instagram to Threads. Anything that had to do with this, with me, I was done with. There are some things that I still feel that may not happen. But I'm not throwing them out the door. And if you wind up watching the YouTube video, yes, you're going to hear me crying. Because the 4 people that I've mentioned, Carol Alt, Eric Essex, Anonymous, Elise Alexander, those 4 people really helped this podcast. Todd Newton, he knows he's always welcome. Stephanie Santana, I'm thankful that she came on. She knows she's always welcome. That door's going to be open. Because I enjoyed chatting with you. I may be sorry if things may not be the right way I did it, but I'm going to work on improving it. If they come back on, great. I could not be any more thankful to that. I'm getting these new guests on different platforms. Some are reaching out to me. Podcasters starting to reach out to me and want me to be a guest on theirs. But every time I've reached out to them, one right now didn't want to collaborate or didn't want to what I call swap, because as they wanted me on theirs, I wanted them on this one. But you know what? Life goes on, and we're going to move on. And I have future guests that I am working on who've gotten back to me at least and say, you know what, Joey, we can't do right now. We may not be able to do next month, but we're still interested. And you know what? I'm thankful for that. Because at least I know that there will be more podcasts coming. It may not be now, but in the future. I mean, I've had Kimberly Bukovich. And I apologize if I butchered it wrong, but she came on this podcast when during COVID. Shalene Kent Kiefer. She's a friend I lost because of that Joey Calvo who thinks he's a piece of shit. Did something. Shalene, if you watched this video or you listen to the podcast, I would be happy if you were my friend again. Because we had an amazing conversation. And she's a Wonder Woman cosplayer / actress. Actress. We get that right. And she has a YouTube channel too. Elise Alexander. One of the major parts to why I'm taking these steps today and going forward instead of back on the pity party and falling back. She has a website called burningpure.com. And she will coach you in the right direction, because I've learned now, and during that time that we have conversed, that I do mean a lot. And I should mean it to myself. And I need to. And we're going to do that. It's going to take time. But at least can coach you in that right direction. I mean, she can. When you watch that YouTube video, or you listen to the former podcast that I did with Elise, it's been about a month now, month or two, no, almost two. And you listen to that podcast, or you watch that podcast. YouTube, we went over an hour, but there was so much said, and I almost didn't want to listen to it. And you know what? I realized I'm wrong. I need to listen. I need to grab myself by the, and pardon my language again, the fucking balls, and move positive. And Anonymous sees it too. And that's what I'm going to do for this podcast. Anything negative, guess what? I don't want to hear it. You know what? If you're going to be negative, take that negativity and shove it up your ass. Because I'm done with it. I'm tired of that old Joey Calvo. I'm tired of that pity party Joey Calvo. And for once in my damn life, I'm going to be a better Joey Calvo. A much better Joey Calvo. It's going to take time. It's going to be a fight. But I know I can do it. And I've had other guests, like a Philadelphia radio legend, Patty Jackson. I've had classmates who have done independent films, wrote books, that are doing other things. I've had them on this podcast. Yeah, they're by phone, because we didn't get into YouTube till like a year ago. Or two, no, correction, 2 years ago. Going on 3. Somewhere between 3 and 4. They always know that they can come back on this podcast. But for all of those that were telling me what to do, even though you were trying to help, you really weren't. Because of wording. And I can't stress that enough. I may do a fun podcast in a week and talk about what I'm looking for in a relationship. And you know what? I should. Because I actually filed for divorce for the first time in 15 years. That I should have done 15 years ago. But I grabbed my fucking balls about it. And again, excuse me for the language. But the buck on that Joey Calvo that thinks he's a piece of shit and means nothing is going out the door. And he's going out with a big ass kick. Not small, little 8.5-inch sneaker. He's going out with an 8.5-inch safety shoe. That's harder and might go a further distance than a regular 8.5-inch, 8.5 size sneaker. And I know this hour is almost up, but I gotta thank Kimberly. I gotta thank Sabrina Blocker. I gotta thank Grim. I gotta thank Anonymous. I gotta thank Lisa Alexander. I gotta thank Patty Jackson. I gotta thank Todd Newton, Eric Essex, Carol All, Gregory Jabara, Dr. Michelle Mainberg, Joe Rocky, Noah. I had Noah Healy just on last week. Alicia Wilder, thank you. And she does a podcast, believe it or not, with her husband called the Ex-Wife Podcast. If you Google it, you'll be able to look it up. You'll be able to listen to it. Yes, I'm a Wonder Woman fan. Okay, I am into DC. I am working on having more cosplayers on. I want more cosplayers on. I really do. There are porn stars that do superhero and porn. And you know what? I want them on. Yes. I'm going there. Because you know why? They all have a story. It may not be suitable for everybody. But guess what? I want to hear it. I've begged Anonymous to even come on this podcast. And there's a lot to Anonymous that I can't share right now. Because I would want Anonymous to say it, not me. Because I kept a promise to that person. Elise knows that she's always welcome to come back. Everybody that I've had on this podcast is always welcome to come back. Because I enjoy chatting with them. And I want to be better at it. So this podcast is going to be a journey. This podcast is going to be therapy for now. So yes, I am leaving Facebook on March 31st. And yes, I'm going to hurt people that have been friends on there that have really stuck by me. And I do have some family on there too. But they know how to reach me. And they're going to know how to reach me. Because I will still be on Twitter. I will still be on Instagram. And I'm going to be on Threads. And it's under Life with Joey Calvo. And I will, through every bit of the heart that I'm going to be rebuilding from this point on, and the trust I got to put into myself and build, and the acceptance I have to give myself that I've got to build, is going to make this podcast better. So if you're going to follow and subscribe, please do. You want to come on my journey? Please do. You can go on wishtender.com, search Life with Joey Calvo. Help support the podcast, because some things are not going to be cheap. Because I want to make a website for this. Okay? So that way, these YouTube videos, actually there is a website that you can watch them on. It's called Podpage. So when these podcasts are done, after a little bit, they go on Podpage. But I want to have a website too, to where you can come on, leave comments, ask questions, be a guest. Because I want to hear the story. I want you to share your story with me. And I want to be proud to share that story. So, Eric has a website, ericessex.net. So that's ERICESSIX.net. Carol Alt, carolalt.com, CAROLALT.com. Elise Alexander, burningpure.com. Anonymous, thank you. Elise, thank you. All the guests I've had on this podcast, so many to mention, thank you. Because now you got me to see that this podcast does mean something to me. And I need to take that step and make it and continue that therapy to make it go forward and to be better and stronger than I can ever be in my life. I thank you for all that. To the listeners and the viewers that have been watching these podcasts on YouTube and listening on the anchor.fm, thank you. Because now we're going to make this better. We're going to make it more positive. We're going to make it stronger. And we're going to make it better. And it's going to be a fight. But I know I can do it. So, at this point, I'm going to thank everybody. Hopefully, we'll have more guests. Like I said, I've got 2 that we're working on right now. Yes, they are adult actresses. They're going to be for over 18. And that's Alex Cole and Tracy Jordan. And we're going to make it better. It may not be like the Joe Rogan podcast, but we're going to damn well make it feel like it's going to be that. I'm not going to be like Howard Stern. I'm not going to ask him to go topless because they'll kick me off YouTube for it. As much as I would want to do that, I won't. But on a serious note, and I could get off of that one, thank you all. And definitely thank Carol Alt, Eric Essex, Anonymous, and Lisa Alexander. Thank you for being my friends. Thank you for being that support. Kimberly, thank you as well. And those that have been on Facebook, thank you. For those that really stood by me, I thank you for that. May God bless you all.